Okay, that's very interesting to know. At least I know what PMs do now because I just go and be like, you it's walking around. I'm like, what are these guys doing? Okay. But thank you very much, Aziz, for getting on the call with me and just trying to have a random chat where we talk about whatever. But I think before we get started, for the most part, people would want to know who you are, what you do, where you work, where you currently stay. So go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here. I haven't done
Yeah.
any of these podcasts ever,
Okay.
so I'm very excited to be here.
Nice.
Yeah, a little bit about me. We'll keep it short and sweet. I grew up in Tunisia, in North Africa, um, all my life until I was 17 before I went to college in Switzerland. And from Switzerland, the studies in engineering were really hard, so I was really excited to go somewhere else after Switzerland. So I finished my bachelor and I went to the States for grad school. I
Okay.
went to New York and I loved New York. I love the energy. So I knew that I wanted to stay in the States for a while and try to work there, try to see if I could make it. What can I learn from this country? So I stayed in the States for about another 2 years after that, and then my visa ran out. The company I worked for decided to sponsor me for Canada, and that's when I moved to Canada. It was in retrospect, I was devastated when my visa ran out. I mean, the whole immigrant lifestyle is really a struggle, but it kind of really makes you tough. It makes your skin really thick. But I was devastated. But then in retrospect, I think it was probably one of the best decisions I made. And I moved to Toronto with that company. Then I switched job after moving to Canada. That company was very good to me, but I just found my first job in tech as a PM, and that's where really things started to accelerate a lot and kind of piercing into the space of tech. And after Yelp, I joined Asana and moved to Vancouver, and now I'm based out of Vancouver.
Okay, that's very interesting. Random. I didn't know anything. I didn't know all these things about Aziz. So the bulk of everything you just said now, I'm just hearing. I'm just hearing it too. Uh, but I think the first thing that, which is just like a random question, is I know you speak French. Is that the official language in Tunisia or like?
Yeah, so Arabic is the official language, but if you were to sample 100 people, I think you'll probably find 70% or 80% of people in Tunisia speak fluently French, because
Ah,
of its historical colonial aspect of the Tunisian history. And then quite
okay,
recently, about 70 years ago, we became independent. So
okay.
the remnants of the French colonial history is still there. So everybody speaks French.
Mhm.
70%, 80% of people. For a PM, if you hit 80%, that's everybody. That's everybody. We covered the whole
Okay.
space.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
that's interesting. I guess one random question that I also have from what you already said, before we sort of like move to more like the other part is what is your background? I don't think I got that from the introduction. What's your background like? Because you said something about transitioning into PM just a couple of years ago. So what is your background from?
Yeah, my background is in chemical engineering. So all of the heat
Okay.
exchanger, condensator, and all of those unit of processes that you would see in a factory. That's what I studied in undergrad and in grad school, in both. And in grad school, I was even a bit more focused on polymers. But then when I started to look for a job in the States in the chemical engineering space, there was nothing. And I applied for everything. I applied even to jobs that frankly were scary because they were like night shift. Would you do a night shift from midnight to 6 a.m.? And I'm like, doing a night
Mm.
shift doing what? What am I going to do from midnight to 6 a.m.?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get even like, I probably applied for three, 400 jobs. Of course, I found help from people. I outsourced the application process to folks in Southeast Asia so that they can help me apply. So I had a list of tests that they would do. This is my resume. This is my cover letter. You have to change these words for others. Um, but I barely got 5, 6 interviews. And when we moved along the interview process, um, all traditional companies are not really happy to sponsor immigrants. So I applied with Dow Chemicals. I applied with a bunch of very traditional companies, and none of them were like, "Oh, well, you have a student visa, and then we would need to do what?" No, no, I don't think this is going to work for us. So after school, I was a bit in a pickle, and I'm like, "What? I just studied 5 years in the top schools in the States and in Switzerland. And I can't find a job, even being a shift worker at a factory. This is utterly ridiculous." And then that's when I decided to follow my brother, who was at Berkeley at the time, and he decided to do a boot camp in data. So that in that boot camp, essentially, you learned how to use Python and how to use other libraries in Python, frameworks, TensorFlow
Yeah.
in Python to analyze data. And I'll keep it to that because when you leave that boot camp, you have this whole world of cloud computing and
Yeah.
analysis and all of that, and then you just a little fish in a massive ocean, and you don't know what to apply for. But then, yeah,
Hmm.
after that, I applied for a lot of positions, and then landed this job in a consulting firm. It was more of a IT cloud type of consulting firm. So they would find clients that want to move some of their workloads to the cloud, and they would just build their workflows to the cloud. And then most of their workflows would involve a piece that was um, statistic relevant to statistics, whether they were using analytics or they were using models to infer something. There was a piece that was what I was responsible for. How can we move that from their on-prem systems to the cloud, and then have that run efficiently? So I did that. That was my transition mode from chemical engineering to the data world.
I think it's going to be I think it's an interesting story because one of the questions that people ask, which I'm still probably going to ask later, is how people can sort of like transition from non like tech, the what we think as tech now, software engineering, PM, and all those things, how they can, if they say they have a background in something different, how they can get into that, which we will still get into. But I think that's a very interesting story from chemical engineering to PM at a tech company. That's probably going to be what the thumbnail is going to be. By the way, I'm just saying. But yeah, I think that's very interesting. So I think I'm very curious. What does a PM do? Like, what is even a PM, right? Uh, I think let's start from what does PM stand for? What can it stand for? So yeah, let's start from there.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so when you hear PM, it can stand for, at least the one that I know, is a
Hmm.
product
Hmm.
manager, and program manager. Those are the
Yeah.
three that I usually see in the market.
Hmm.
And just to be very fun and just to be very ridiculous, they also their definitions change from a company to another.
Yeah.
I know, for example, in Microsoft, a program manager is what usually is referred as a product manager. In other companies, project managers, I think, is quite consistent across different companies. But then product managers sometimes get called product owners in certain companies. But then if you find a company that has a product owner, a product manager, and a product project manager, just don't join that company. People must be stepping on everybody's toes frequently, so just don't join them. But yeah, usually you would have um, whatever flavor of product management, and then if really I think the moment where project managers become needed is when execution is actually quite tricky. Maybe there is some technicalities around execution that really requires someone to be super involved operationally on a day to day on how projects get accelerated and get completed. That's when I think project managers are required, and are actually their help is much more needed. Or you would have a product manager that is extremely good in execution. That's how I kind of differ between each one of them. To be clear, I don't think one is better than the other. I think with each role, I think you get to hone a different set of skills. Project
Okay.
managers usually get a lot of exposure on execution. They are
Okay.
extremely good at removing roadblocks, identifying roadblocks ahead of time, getting people in the right meeting to make the right decisions. So operationally, these are geniuses. These people can really execute extremely well. Their projects don't fall
Mhm.
behind. They're able to clear all of the roadblocks. So if you're looking to hone that skill, if you want to get better and better at those skills, project
Mhm.
managers is a really good opportunity. Product managers are opportunities where you can hone your strategy skills. People that are maybe looking into MBAs might like product manager roles because they have this
Mhm.
component of setting strategy, identifying gaps in the market where you think your product could fit in right there. You set
Mhm.
the vision. You really are trying to inspire and convince people that we should get into this market and why we should get into this market. So those are skills that product manager opportunities can help you hone on. That's why you see in a lot of companies, MBA students actually end up being product managers as well. But then it's a trade off. The excellent product managers kind of have their spider chart really maxed out in all skill sets. But then if you come from an MBA, you might spike into strategy, and then execution you just fall behind. And that's when the collaboration with engineering managers, with project engineering leads becomes really important.
Okay. That's very interesting because I've just always wondered, like, usually I just say PM and you go figure out whatever PM means to you. I'm like, okay, PM, like, just go figure. I don't want to start explaining what that is about there, but I think it's good to have that clarification, which then probably leads me to the next question, which is, you are a product manager at Asana. What are some of the skills that you use on a daily basis? What are some of the skills that you think, say, are important for you as a product manager?
I think the foundational skill that every single product manager, regardless of where you are, is your attention to your customers. So if you're a
Mm,
product manager and you haven't chatted with any of your customer out there, there's something that you're doing wrong, or that your company
mhm.
is not allowing you to do. That's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
You need to be super in touch with customers. And the reason why you need to be super in touch with the customer is because you are the person that represents your customers among your team. That's how you're going to inspire them. That's how you're going to make them realize that what they're building matters, that it helps actual pains from your customers, that when we're going to ship it, people are going to use it as opposed to not using it. So really, you need to be the advocate for customers. That's the first skill. That's the foundational bedrock of being a product manager. The second is, when you get into this iterative state of talking to your customers, you start to hear very often similar pains. You start to almost, there's a light bulb that starts to lighten up, and that's when you start to see, oh, there is this space that we need to enter because a lot of people are complaining about, and that's where the strategy skill set start to enter in motion. That's the second skill set. And then the third skill set, which I think is one of the most hard to hone, at least for me personally, is communication. You need a way to convey to your team that this is the right path that we need to take, and this is the most leverage project that we need to work on. Because if we do that, then we're going to be able to do this. Then we're eventually going to be able to ship that. And then kind of this communication, this level of clarity is one of the core skill that makes excellent PMs out there. And that's when you start to become a lead, because you understand your space so well that you're able to connect the dots on what needs to happen for you to reach this ultimate goal. So these three kind of customer centricity, being leads you to be strategic with your bets and eventually be able
Mhm.
to communicate that to the team to make them realize that this is what we need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
is key to being a PM. And then, of course, getting there's something that is shared across all of the tech companies among my friends, and the one that I've gone to is you need to be someone that's biased to get shit done. Like PMs
Yeah.
don't get paid for not shipping. Like if you're not shipping for a month, 2 months, 3 months, you're doing something wrong. If you're not shipping for
Mm-hmm.
3 months, you're doing something wrong. So you need to be shipping, getting stuff done. It doesn't mean that you ship features to outside customers. You can be shipping features to internal stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to be shipping.
Yeah.
If you're not shipping
Mm-hmm.
for 2 or 3 months, you're doing something wrong. And then when you ship stuff, you're gonna get feedback. And how do you
Okay.
internalize that feedback? How do you um, grow from that feedback is also something that is highly valued as a PM. So these five skills is how when GNI happens, when growth and impact happens, when you're getting evaluated on how was your last 6 months, how was your last year,
Mm-hmm.
we look at these
Yeah.
five skill set, and you can think of it as a spider chart. You have these pentagon, and then okay, this the past 6 months I really tried to improve my communication because I think I was a
Yeah.
bit less than the other edges, and then you try to
Mm-hmm.
boost there. It's a kind of a visual representation to evaluate where you are as a PM.
Okay. I think that's very interesting. I mean, a couple of things that I got is that get shit done, bias for action in Asana terms.
Yeah,
Also, like you need to be able to communicate, get from the customer to what the team needs and how the like what the team is supposed to work on, be able to like translate the customer pain to what the team is going to work for, which sort of like then leads me to two questions. The first one is, what's the role of a PM? I know like a PM, whether product manager, a project manager, can be in different industry, and how they interact differs. But you and I are in the tech industry, and you work with engineers and designers and stuff. So what's the dynamic? What does the dynamic of a PM look like in an engineering team? I don't know if that question makes sense. Some of these questions are just coming from my head now. Sorry, they
yeah,
are not. Yeah, I'm just
no,
trying
no,
to
no,
have a nice conversation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You're touching on something very important in the PM skill set. Is you're
Hmm.
bound to talk to very different people, not only in functions but also in
Hmm.
incentives. Like when I
Hmm.
talk to people, the first thing I ask myself is, what does this person have to gain from talking with me or from this conversation? If you
Hmm.
can't answer that question, you should not have that conversation with that person, because if the
Hmm.
person cannot understand what's their incentive to helping you or to have this conversation, you're not going to go anywhere.
Hmm.
So it can be as ridiculous as this person needs to talk to me, or this person will benefit from chatting with me because what I'm going to tell this person is something that they don't know and that will impact their life or their work in the next 6 months. As easy as that. It doesn't have to be related to them getting a promotion or not getting a promotion.
Hmm.
It can be as this is a must know for this person for their next 6 months. So identify what is the incentive for the person you're communicating with. What would they gain from chatting with you? And that's when I
Hmm.
that's the kind of mindset I have when I chat with engineers, with designers.
Yeah.
Okay, engineers, I should chat with the project lead or the tech lead, because if I go and present this roadmap to leadership without getting information from my tech lead, they're going to be surprised 6 months down the line. They're
Yeah.
going to tell me, oh, this is not feasible. It's going to make their life
Yeah.
hell. Thus they're
Hmm.
going to make my life hell, so they need to
Yeah.
know this information. That's kind of how I approach chatting with different stakeholders, whether they're designers, data science,
Hmm.
engineers, my manager, my skip, anybody that I chat with. I'm like, okay, how is this conversation helpful to them? What would they gain
Hmm.
gain from chatting with me?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's interesting. More on a lighter note, before I ask like the next serious question is, I don't know if you see these memes. I don't know if you are very active on social media, but there are these memes of like PMs and engineers always like the PM wants you to like do them like nah. What do you think about that? Do you think that I don't think that maybe because I'm not part of the major stakeholders in Asana. I'm not part. I'm not like a TL and EM. But what do you think about that stereotype? That the fact that, I mean, usually PMs come with features like shape it, shape it, and then the engineer is like, "This is going to take longer. Why are you trying to put me under pressure?" So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, this reminded me of a meme I saw a couple of months ago where
Mm,
PMs present a project to engineers that, oh, this is going to take us 6 months or 8 months, and then the
yeah.
next picture is hackathon happens, engineer builds another feature in 2 days, and then PM's
Oh
like,
wow.
what? What is this?
How did we get here? Yeah, how did we get here?
Yeah, I think these memes have a semblance of truth
Mm-hmm.
at very early stages of your career. So PMs early in their career, engineers early in their career, there is this miscommunication that can happen. PMs have very high expectation of what engineers can do, and engineers are like, I don't know if I could do this in this amount of time, so let me add 3 times the number of buffer for this feature. So early in each other's career, you will see people again, their incentive is to not disappoint. Their incentive is to not create conflict. So they kind of exaggerate both in the things that matter to them. So PMs, they want to ship the best feature ever, so because they have the incentive of shipping a good feature that will reach their customers. Engineers are like, well, I don't know if I could do this, so let me increase the buffer. But the more you grow in your career, the more you interact with senior folks, the more those memes become a bit less accurate. But
Mm-hmm.
they're still super funny. They're still super funny.
Yeah. Still, like, I'm probably gonna record, like, make an IG reel on to that random thing. But I guess the next very interesting question is, what do you think about technical so say you work as a PM in a tech uh org. What do you think about technical skills, like knowing some basics about programming? I know you, from what you said, you had a sort of background in data analytics. Do you think that's very important for anybody going into, like, that wants to be a technical PM, or like that wants to be a PM in a tech company or whatever?
Mhm. I think the short answer is it helps. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a requirement, but it definitely helps. And
Okay.
if I look at the small sample size of PMs I worked with, there is a majority of people that come from the information technology space. They
Mm-hmm.
either have some education or transition from being a software engineer to a PM, and those tend to have an easier time being a PM at a tech company than non-tech folks. And
Mm.
the
That's it.
the reason is quite normal. Like the language that they use to communicate with engineers is the language that they master. Whereas if you come from a world where you don't speak that language, you're going to have a harder time to learn the language. So you're going to
Mm-hmm.
need a bit more iterations so that you can speak the language of your stakeholders. But
Okay.
it's not a hard requirement. I've seen
Mm-hmm.
a lot, a minority, but still a lot of people in terms of sample size, of people that
Yeah.
come from arts and history, of people that come from psychology, of people that come from solution engineering. One of my colleagues at Asana used to be in the business in the the biz world of Asana, so deploying
Yeah.
Asana in some customers' environments,
Mm-hmm.
and decided to transition to product management. It's just harder to learn a new language, but it's
Yeah.
not unheard of. And then sometimes those folks bring a spiciness or a variety because of other skill set. Like sometimes people from they come from arts and history or psychology are people that are able to tell a story much better than people
Mm-hmm.
that come from information technology. Information technology are probably people that are down to earth. They're able to understand the details. People
Yeah.
from art, history, and psychology, or whatever other major out there, they can tell a story extremely well. They can be
Okay.
visionary with the pains and the problem space that they evolve in, and that is
Mm-hmm.
super helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess summary, it's like it's not a barrier, but it can be helpful. And I mean, at the end, you want to think about, say, for example, you're working with designers and also like engineers? Do you also want to learn everything that a designer knows? Right. It's helpful to know some things, but I mean, you don't necessarily need to like say, oh, what's this data structure and all those kind of things, which is like,
Absolutely,
what the heck are you saying? Okay. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's very interesting. So I guess the other interesting question that I want to add, I'm trying to do one spicy one serious, one spicy, one
Let's
serious,
do it. Yeah,
which is like so what does your day look like? Say you go to work at Asana today. What does your day look like?
yeah. Well, tomorrow I'm going to work, and right
Oh
now
yeah.
the season, yeah, the season is we're trying to ship a migration, so we need to really make sure that the right customers are let know ahead of time that their
Mm-hmm.
accounts will not be deeply affected. So my day to day looks a lot like looking at a specific customer, looking at which user will be affected, how are these users gonna, how is their account gonna be changed? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of right now I'm a lot in the weeds on how this migration would work because of how
Yeah.
sensitive this type of work is. Otherwise, in another project, I'm less in the day to day in the operational Q&A, and I trust
Yeah.
my engineers to do that, and I'm a bit more
Mm-hmm.
on what's going to be the next iteration. How is this landing with users? How is the adoption rate?
Mm-hmm.
So I would tend to look a bit more on to metrics on a regular day, but right now it's just a matter of the type of work that I'm doing this month is on a migration, so I need to be a bit more one layer deep in the QA. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll go to work. I'll look into some customers, look into some users, and see how their accounts
Mm-hmm.
are going to be migrated. Did we get any feedback from some of these users? Where are we in the shipping? We have a checklist to check
Yeah.
on the to ship a feature. So where are we on that checklist? Yeah, that's. I would say when I entered the product management role, I've been sold the story that if you're a PM, not a single day will look alike.
Yeah.
It's kind of true. It's kind of true, but it's not the. I think it has been romanticized where, oh, you're going to be doing something completely different one day, something completely different the other day,
Yeah.
and you actually in tech this is called context switching, and it's extremely
Yeah.
disruptive to your day, and you end up
Several.
achieving
Yeah.
nothing if you
Yeah.
do that. So you try to maintain some level of consistency day over day, and then what
Mm-hmm.
I a practice that I do at Asana that I learned from other Asanas is I have a publicly announced week. This is my objective this week. These are the tasks that I'll
Yeah.
be doing, and then I try to do that ahead of time at the beginning of the week, and then the week after that, I'll have another one. So that I try to plan a week of consistent type of work, and then the other week will have a different type of work. That's what I try to do.
Okay. Okay, that's very interesting to know. At least I know what PMs do now because I just I'm like you keep walking around. I'm like, what are these guys doing? Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting to know that you guys are not just playing.
Not a lot of
Anyways,
playing.
okay, that's really nice to say to hear. So the next thing I want us to round end this very soon. So I'm going to go to like someone that wants to start and go be a product manager. What number one is we already talked about the skills that they will need to start working on. What is one advice that you would give them? Say they want to start doing that. Also, in the same note, you can just talk about. I know it's been a while that you probably applied for a job. I don't know. And you probably don't want to say that on the internet, even if you've been applying for jobs. But yeah, what do you think about the the job market space for PMs? What are the things that people that want to get into it, that looking for a job now, what should they start working on? What should they start looking into? Yeah, this you can just talk around that topic.
Yeah, let's start very kind of the bird's eyes view about the current job market. If you look historically, PM roles, product manager roles, have been quite scarce, and that's why people have such a hard time getting into this position. Not because it's a sexy position or anything. It's because there aren't that many jobs out there for PMs, and for a valid reason. Is because for every maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 engineers, you need one PM. So if you find a company that has only 5 engineers, it's very unlikely that they will need a PM. So I think the scarcity of jobs out there is more related to the fact that the ratio of engineers to PM is much heavier leaning on the engineering side. So you will probably find much more engineering positions than PM positions. However, right now I think you're going through an even uh, more drastic reduction of PM roles because tech companies are running more and more lean. I don't know if you've been following the stock market, but tech companies have been quite public about their um, efforts to run leaner. So they've been cutting jobs, and then the first job that will be cut is more likely PMs. So you're getting an even scarcer supply of PM roles. However, even right now, actually, I was looking yesterday. Given that you told me that we were going to chat today, I was looking yesterday. What are the PM jobs that are open in our area? And then I see Coinbase hiring. I see Coursera hiring. I see Microsoft hiring. So you still have a lot of tech companies that are hiring. Now, my recommendation for people that are trying to get their first job in the product world is going the normal route of applying, um, cold turkey applying for a role that you don't have experience in is very hard to break through. So my recommendation is try to build a relationship. It's hard to build relationship with people. Building it async or via LinkedIn messages is even harder. So build a relationship with them, grab a coffee with them, understand what's in it for them. So what's in it for them to refer you, to evaluate you. So take it step by step. It's like building a relationship with someone, a friend you just met. You're not gonna ask that friend, "Hey, can you invite me to your house party the next day?" You're likely going to grab coffee first. You go on runs together. You try to find commonalities between each other, and then try to get a sense of what's the culture in the company. This is maybe this is actually the maybe this is a nice to have. If I put my PM hats on, if I prioritize ruthlessly, if you're an immigrant, and this was my situation when I started applying for PM jobs, I could not
Yeah.
afford to look for company culture. I needed a job. I needed a PM job. Whatever the
Yeah.
whatever the culture was, I
Yeah.
was going to adapt there. And that's also a
Hmm.
skill set of being PMs. You get shit done. If it needs to be done, you
Yeah.
will get it done. You
Hmm.
might not happy at the end, but you get it done. This is one of your core skills.
Yeah.
And then
Your
when
happiness
you
can
can
stay in the
afford it,
background.
exactly, when you can afford to be happy while doing your job, then you made it. Then you can hit that nice to have. Your MVP is
Hmm.
to get your first PM job. When you get your first PM job, get some experience so that in your V1 you can afford to look for a culture that fits your ethics, that fits your
Yeah.
whatever matters to you. You can afford
Hmm.
that. So yeah, for your first PM job, you can't hit everything. It's like an MVP. You can't hit everything.
Yeah.
Just prioritize what needs to happen, and then
Hmm.
try to build connections. I highly recommend building connections with people, and then just focus on what is it, walking the talk. I think I always mix this expression. Focus on
Yeah.
basically showing the projects that you've done, showing what you've done personally, so that this person has some evidence that you're not some liar out there that's trying
Bloating your
to fake your
LinkedIn.
way in. Yeah. So try to kind of put projects that you're proud of, that you're
Hmm.
genuinely proud and excited to talk to someone about, and don't shove it their mouth. Like, try to make it a conversation. Are they interested in this space? If they're not interested, for example, you've built a soccer app. If they're not interested in soccer, don't bring it up. Like, yeah, I built an app in a space, but they're not interested in soccer, so just
Yeah.
move on to something else that they're interested in. They need to have an incentive to talk to you, so focus on
Hmm.
what's their incentive.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting, and I think that going to be helpful for a lot of people. And to be honest, I do agree that sometimes early on in your career, especially if you're an immigrant or if you're in some part of the world, your happiness is probably not the priority. If you get like, if you can be, I mean, it's not like you should be sad every day, but if you can be unhappy just for a couple of days in a year and get like 1 year of experience or 1.5, you can afford to then say, oh, I want to bounce to another company because now I'm looking for culture. So yeah, I think that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, I can't begin to
It's
tell of
it's
stories
tough to
of
say. I think yeah, it's tough to say, but it's important to realize
yeah,
that if you're trying to lie to yourself and be like, no, no, I need to be
hmm,
happy at my job,
yeah,
it's going to be very hard to find that perfect job.
hmm, yeah,
And also this is a skill set. Like PMing, one of the most important skill set is ruthless prioritization. You will not be
yeah,
able to hit everything all at once. So prioritize
yeah,
what's the minimum. If that minimum is good for you, take it, and
hmm.
then you can afford something else in the future.
Okay, that makes sense. And at the end, we there's the way the world is supposed to be, and there's the way the world is. There's the way the job market. We would like the job market to be for everyone
Absolutely.
to get a job, but and everyone to be happy at their job. But there's the way the world is in that you have to struggle to get some jobs at some particular point, which so those are like some of the major questions that I prepared for you. And now for the most, I wouldn't say spicy, but more like questions that people dropped on my Instagram and some people send on WhatsApp, which is the first one is why product management? I know you said you had a background in data analysis. So why product management and why at Asana? I know you've been at Asana for 2 years plus.
Yeah.
So why product and why Asana?
Yeah, yeah. So this is an existential question for me. I keep on bouncing between data and product. Actually, at Yelp,
Oh, interesting.
towards yeah the end of my time at Yelp, I actually switched back to data scientist, and
Hmm,
then when I moved to Asana, I switched back to product. Um,
interesting.
there is definitely an overlap between both. Like if you're a PM that knows how to run your own analysis, to how to bring insights from data on your own, it's actually very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say I'm leaning towards product because I'm thinking long term, it is easier to build something if you have this mindset of being customer centric, being strategic, being having a growth mindset, and convincing people about your vision. Practicing these skills will help me eventually build a product on my own if I ever want to do my own business. Practicing
Mm-hmm.
these skills, it will be extremely helpful. Whereas if I continue in the data space, I'll be very good at running analysis. I'll know a lot of technical skills. But to
Yeah.
build a company, to build a product on your own, is going to be really hard if you don't hone the skills that product management helps you hone. So
Mm-hmm.
it is definitely a calculated move. Like if you get into product, don't get into the space for the money, because you probably can
Yeah.
get better paid as a software engineer or can get
Yeah.
paid as a data scientist in a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
companies. And then you actually have much more supply, much more positions in these two
Yeah.
categories. So don't get in there for the money, uh, get in there with some level of future return. Either you're going to build your own company, having a product mindset is extremely helpful, or you're going
Mm-hmm.
to join a very early stage career, probably some of the founding members of an early stage company. And that's going to
Yeah.
help to have a strong product mindset. And your second question was why Asana?
Yeah.
So I actually moved from Yelp to Asana. So my decision to join Yelp. So when I join a company, there are usually two areas that I look at: the intrinsic mission and space that this company evolves in, and the
Yeah.
second is the culture. So the people I'm going to work with. I joined
Mm-hmm.
Yelp because of the first one, the intrinsic characteristic of the company. So it was an
Yeah.
ads company. I wanted to get into ad systems. I want to understand how does an ad auction work and what are the different
Yeah.
components. I didn't get there for the culture. I actually left because of the culture. And I joined Asana because of its culture. I actually had a couple of rounds with Lawrence, my manager, with a few of my colleagues. So I had a few rounds with them, and I really enjoyed the people I was going to work with. I didn't know much
Mm-hmm.
about the space of
Software.
of collaborative tools per se. I knew that it was growing a lot. So when you look at advancing your career, it's very important to join a company that is growing a lot, because you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
advance your career if a company is not growing. Actually,
Yeah.
that's you should probably your first filter for applying for companies. If the company is not growing, don't join
Yeah.
this company. Your career
Okay.
will not be helped from joining that company. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that I joined Asana for the culture. I really enjoy the people I work with. Super smart, and this is kind of a rule of thumb that I try to I can afford buying now. Is I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to be
Mm.
surrounded by people that are way smarter than me,
Yeah.
and I just listen. I'll just listen. Sometimes I'll have a
Yeah.
question. I'll be like, I'm not afraid
Yeah.
to ask questions. I'll
Mm-hmm.
ask questions, but I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. If that's
Yeah.
the case, you should probably leave companies.
Mm-hmm. I think that's that last point is a very interesting one because I've been thinking of recording a video of one. I think one of the best things that I've enjoyed at Asana is the fact that I work with very smart people that are pushing me daily. And I go to work, I'm like, damn, I need to do better. Like, and I think that's very nice because you don't want to be the smartest in like the whole group, right? It's always very good to work with people that are very smart. And I think I've really found that at Asana. And to be honest, people are smart and also very humble. At least people that I've worked with at the Vancouver
Absolutely.
office, right? So, and I think the culture is this is an advert for Asana, but yeah, yeah, Asana is a good place to work, anyways. So yeah, the next one is how would you compare? They asked the question, I did not ask it. Well, how would you compare the start of your career to where you are currently? Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of my career, and especially when you transition careers, you definitely have the imposter syndrome. Like you have
Mm.
this ball in your stomach that, oh, when am I gonna get busted because I'm a fraud
Yeah.
and whatever I'm doing is completely wrong. That's
Yeah.
I had that ball in my stomach every day for about a month in my first job,
Mhm.
and I was working tirelessly. I even remember some days I would just come get to work at 7 a.m., leave at 8 p.m., and then the next day I'll be sleeping on my bed, falling asleep because I just couldn't get enough sleep. But
Yeah.
yeah, the beginning of my career, it was rough. Just transitioning careers, you kind of lose all of your confidence. Like whatever I
Yeah.
learned for 5 years is useless in what I'm doing
Mm.
today, and that
Mm.
kind of freaks you out.
Yeah.
But then you start to realize that people in the business world are not as threatening. At least, okay, this is heavily biased towards tech. They're not threatening people. They're like people that
Yeah.
wants to help you.
Hmm.
And the reason why I did add that caveat around tech is tech enjoys the fact that we live in a world of abundance. Like when you look at
Mm.
gross profit of tech companies, they're in
Yeah.
the 50%, 60%, 70%. I think
Yeah.
Adobe was the largest one that I saw recently, 86%
Mm.
gross profit margin. Like this is a world of abundance. People
Yeah.
can afford to be nice to each other, and then people want to generally help. When you look
Yeah.
at businesses that have 5, 10%, 12% of gross profit,
Yeah.
nobody's there
People
to
want to
help you.
fuck you up.
You exactly. You better do your job, do it fast, and you don't have the time to rest. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why the caveat of you're in tech, people are generally interested in helping you, not only because it's a world of abundance, but also a lot of people are incentivized to do so. Like, and you know this just like me, at Asana, we are judged by how well you treat your teams. You need to grow Team Asana. Like you going
Yeah.
alone and being individualistic is not going to make you get a promotion. It's not going to
Yeah.
improve your career. If you help your
Hmm.
team grow, if you help other people, people say nice things about you, you will actually be very well rewarded. And that's
Yeah.
something that tech does very well, and it kind of uplifts your spirit, and you come to work and you want to be there and you want to help others.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the main shift that I had. It's a mindset shift. At the beginning, I thought that I was a fraud. I thought that I did not deserve to be there. And
Yeah.
today, I'm like, well, I'm gonna do my best. And if that's not enough, I'll try again tomorrow.
Next question is what advice would you give someone who are trying to transition into tech? I guess this person is asking tech in general from a non-technical background. Say they are from the arts or like from the arts and not from tech in general. What advice would you give them? And I
I
think
think
before you answer that, there's something. Sorry, there's something that someone the person added. saying that most jobs require that you have a bachelor's degree in a technical field like engineering, computer science, basically this thing, but it just added that at the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if I take a situation where your bachelor, your education in general is not technical, and you're trying to
Hmm.
pierce into product management or into software engineering, I guess in software engineering or data analytics, you will need to have some level of education. Whether the proliferation of boot camps out there, there is
Yeah.
a lot that can be done for you to bridge a little bit the gap there. Some companies
Hmm.
like Asana would have some programs for you to. They encourage people that come from non-technical background to take some
Yeah.
sort of internal program where you're getting ramped up on some technical aspects of the job.
Hmm.
But then if you're trying to pierce into the tech world, focus on what you do best. If you come from the sales world or the marketing world, stick to that world, but then apply for a tech company. And then when you get in
Hmm.
a tech company, you'll see that doors tend to be a bit more open for
Yeah.
internal switch. Granted,
Hmm.
if you do some if you mark some check boxes, but it will
Yeah.
be a bit easier for you to move internally rather than to come cold turkey into a
Yeah.
product management from sales or from marketing.
Hmm.
So stick to what you do best, get into the tech world, apply for
Yeah.
positions that are similar to yours, but in a tech company. And then
Hmm.
from there, look for internal. I think internal bridges are a bit easier than to get in there from scratch.
Yeah, I think that's a solid advice. Get into the industry first, and then from there you can start figuring out how to switch. That does make sense. Funny thing is that I mentor a couple of people who work at Amazon fulfillment center and warehouses, and a bunch of them are trying to go into software engineering. And I think Amazon has that thing where they can just, if you finish the boot camp, you can get
Hmm.
into the apprenticeship program or whatever. And I think that's very good. So yeah,
Absolutely.
get into the industry first, and then try to then figure out your way from there. Um, what else? I think that's all the question that I want to ask that I have for now. This was a very interesting one. It took a long time, and I really enjoyed talking to you. This is very nice.
Yeah, I
uh,
had a blast.
so yeah, thank you very much for getting on the call with me. And any last words? But yeah, any last words?
Any last words? If you're trying to get into product management, do it for the right reasons. Don't do it
Mm,
because it's sexy, because
yeah.
you have a friend that's thriving in that world, and then you're like, oh, I want to be
Hmm.
just like that person. Try
Yeah.
to get a bit more into the fundamentals of why you're trying to do it, because
Hmm.
it's a painful process to get into this space and to get into
Yeah.
this position. There aren't that many positions. Your ego will take a beating. It's
Yeah.
painful. It's painful to get in it, and then it's not for everybody. Just
Yeah.
like any positions out there, if you get in for the wrong reasons, you'll probably have a very bad time. So for everybody that's considering a product management career,
Hmm.
try to be honest with yourself. You don't have to
Yeah.
publicly say why to anybody, or to just be
Hmm.
honest with yourself as to why you're trying to get into that space. And then if you're still convinced a couple of weeks later, then yeah, it's a very rewarding um, job title. It's a very rewarding career, and you get to work with most of the time very interesting people. So good luck.